Hello and welcome to the program. I'm your host, Ron Whitlock. The Democratic National Convention convenes August 25th in Denver, Colorado. We have for your perusal here today two individuals who are going to that convention. We're going to get the inside track of what they intend to do at the convention and what you and I will be watching on television. Aaron Pena. Thank you for joining us, Aaron. Aaron is a Texas state representative, headquartered out of Edinburgh, Texas, on the border in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas. He is a delegate at large, pledged to Hillary Clinton. We'll find out more about how that works, Aaron. Gilberto Hinojosa, welcome, Judge, former appeals court judge and county court judge, and also Cameron County judge. He's been a judge of all kinds of different kinds and sizes, Gilberto. Also, he is the DNC elect, Democratic National Committeeman elect. We're going to let him tell you and I what that all means right now. What does it mean, Gilberto? You're going to get to go to the Democratic National Convention, but you can't vote?
Well, I'll be a DNC elect, which means that I will have credentials to the convention. And the DNC is essentially the body that runs the Democratic Party for the United States. The last state convention, I was elected from the Hispanic caucus to be on the DNC, and my office starts at the end of the convention on the 29th for a 4-year period. But since I'm an elect, I get to go and I get to have credentials. I don't get to vote, though.
Does this mean, hopefully, ojalá, that you'll be able to talk to your nominee, Barack Obama, influence him a little bit on some Valley and Texas border issues? Well,
at some point, I hope that Barack comes to Texas, Senator Obama comes to Texas and campaigns down here and talks to us about some of the issues that are important to us down here, and some of the same issues that he's been talking about, like health care, employment issues, and immigration issues, as far as the things that are important to us down here. At the convention, we're not going to have a lot of access to him or whoever the VP candidate is, but we'll be there. And we'll be talking to staff and other people that are involved in the campaign.
Aaron Pena, delegate at large, pledged to Hillary Clinton. But how does that work? She goes, she gives a speech, maybe nomination placed in order, then you suddenly change. How does that work?
Barack Obama is a presumptive nominee. He's not the nominee until
it actually happens.
It actually happens. And so following the process, I've been selected by the Hillary Clinton campaign to be a pledged delegate on her behalf. Now, we all expect a little dance that we normally go through at the conventions. We used to have brokered conventions, big disputes in the olden days, but
they were great. They were exciting.
In this case, there may be some of that. Now, there are still people on the Clinton camp who want to see her placed in nomination, want to go through a roll call vote, but in the modern era, I would expect that both of the candidates, Clinton and Obama, will sit down with their teams and negotiate a resolution as to how we should proceed.
The Rio Grande Valley, both of you went heavily for Hillary Clinton. In the 70s, Obama came several times. Some of his surrogates came many times. We had competing Obama and Hillary Clinton meetings all over the valley, almost at the same time. It's like they were trying to compete for the media coverage. He was going to get it all covered, Gilberto. So with all of that, it was like we were New Hampshire here in South Texas on the border. With all of that, with all of these Hillary voters along the border, now go ahead and go to the polls and show up for Barack Obama.
Yeah, well, they were upset. I mean, there was a sense of loss that we all experience when someone we are with are not going to be where we want them to be. And in this case, as a nominee for the Democratic Party. And, you saw at the state convention a lot of people saying, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I think, when push comes to shove, it's like James Carville said, it's the economy, stupid, and things are really bad. And I think they feel, our people down here feel that the Republicans are the sole cause for the economic conditions, the high gas prices, the mortgage foreclosures that everybody's being affected by today, and they're going to look at that and they're going to say, you know what, I was with Hillary. Obama believes in many, if not most, of all the same things she did. We're going to support the Democratic nominee because we know that John McCain is George Bush light, and he's been bad for us for 8 years, and McCain will be bad for us for the next 4 years if he's elected. So we're going to get past that, and I believe we'll see a large Hispanic turnout supporting Obama in the Democratic ticket.
You can say he's George Bush light for what reason? He was the anti-Bush member of his own party. He was the independent member. He was the maverick for the Republican Party. But yet you say he's had to appeal to those core conservative members of his own party in order to get their vote?
That's right. You know,
So he changed his stride.
That's right. Before he ran for the nomination of the Republican Party, he was all that you say he was. But he had to now cater to the right wing of the Republican Party because you got to do that in order to get the nomination for the Republican president, for nomination for the Republican Party for the presidency. And he did that. I mean, he went far to the right on economic issues. You know, he supports the tax cuts for the rich. His position on Iraq is inconsistent with the prevailing mood in America today. You know, all the issues that George Bush has stood for the last 8 years that have destroyed this country and put us in a situation internationally where we're looked down upon instead of looked up upon the way we used to be, are issues that John McCain now supports when before he didn't. And I think that, you know, he's had to move so far to the right that he can't pull away from that anymore, and he's not going to be able to in order to get this nomination and not seem like the hypocrite that he appears to have become after seeking the nomination from the Republican Party.
Your reaction, Aaron?
Oh, well, you know, I do think that Obama is going to have to make some outreach to our community. By that I mean Deep South Texas and other parts of the country where Hispanics are located. But the polls seem to bear out what Judge Hinojosa is saying, that many of the people who supported Hillary Clinton are now supporting Barack Obama. But the real test is before us. There's going to be a real battle. I expect a fairly negative battle. And we're going to have to make our arguments and stand together. Sometimes the Democratic Party can be its own worst enemy. And the divisions that we saw in the primary need to be healed. So this convention is going to be important so that we can come out united and move on to victory.
So what does your party need to make sure it does not do to have a repeat of 68 in Chicago?
But I think what ultimately has to happen is that those of us, particularly the people who were leading the Hillary campaign, and that includes Hillary and Bill, need to go out there and, as Senator Vanderpute from San Antonio said, intercede on behalf of Obama with the American people, much like a saint would intercede on behalf of us to Jesus Christ to get things done for our benefit. Hillary and Bill need to get out there and campaign hard for Obama to the folks that helped her out, who helped Bill out when he ran, and say, look, this guy's a good guy. He's going to be good for America. We need you to get out there and vote for him. And I think if he does that, you'll see, if she does that, you'll see our folks come around.
Now, we did ask a question of candidate Barack Obama, who is the presumptive nominee, believe it or not, as the one running on the Democratic ticket for the office of President of the United States. During a satellite interview, he responded to my question about immigration reform and where he stands on that issue to people of Hispanic race and to other voters along the border region of South Texas and northern Mexico.
Well, I think it's very important as part of comprehensive immigration reform to have strong border security. And in some cases that means fencing or some sort of barriers. But ultimately, we're not going to be able to build a wall across the entire Texas-Mexico border. And it impinges not only on landowners there, but it's not going to be effective. So what we have to do is work with the Mexican government. We've got to improve economic development on their side of the border so that they're creating jobs and economic development that can provide prosperity for their people. We have to have virtual borders, more effective border control, more effective border surveillance, more officials and officers who are handling the issues down there. And it's also important, though, for us to crack down on employers who I think oftentimes are taking advantage of undocumented workers in order to undercut American labor. And if we do those things, as well as a pathway to citizenship for those who are already in the United States and have put down roots here, are often raising families here and have children who are American citizens or are effectively American, if we combine all those strategies together, I think we can solve this problem.
You both heard what Barack Obama said about immigration reform. How does this stack up with how you think he ought to be standing?
I do agree that comprehensive reform is necessary. It needs to be comprehensive. Simply kicking everybody out of the country who shouldn't be here is not going to solve the problem. Although we all may like that, we all may want that in some lonely moments at home. But the reality is the country won't function. Arizona right now is going through a bit of an experiment where they've brought down harsh sanctions on employers to try to resolve the problem, and we're going to see what happens there. The reality is that you simply, it's not one or the other. We need to find a middle ground, and I think President Bush went down this path, and McCain certainly started down that path, but he seems to have retreated after he became the nominee. So I do agree with Senator Obama that comprehensive immigration reform is necessary.
And you got to understand what comprehensive immigration reform means. It means that everybody gives and takes a little bit to come up with one plan on how to deal with the immigration issues facing America today. There's parts of the comprehensive immigration reform legislation that were sponsored by Democrats and John McCain that I don't like. And there's parts that some of the Republicans didn't like. But they came up with a plan that everybody said, this is fair, this will move us forward, this will start resolving the issues that we are facing in America today. The Republican right wing has said, no, it's going to be our way or the highway, which means that no path to citizenship, increase enforcement, criminalize undocumented workers, and so forth. And that simply is not a plan that can work, will ever be accepted by the Hispanic community. Obama has taken the middle road, the road that the Democratic leadership took, which is the comprehensive reform, is the give and take. It's not all great, but it's the best we can do under the circumstances, and it'll move the ball forward. And McCain and the Republican right have not been willing to do that.
So you're pleased with what we just saw with your candidate, Barack Obama, speaking to this reporter, and my question to him via satellite, and that is he's in favor of a pathway to citizenship. You also saw him say that we're not going to be able to build a wall across the entire Texas-U.S.-Mexican border. The next question that I asked the candidate, Barack Obama, was if he would in fact endorse and propose and support the building of a third dam specified in the 1944 treaty between the United States and Mexico, because that particular dam would provide a body of water, the lake behind the dam. It takes longer for illegals, others, smugglers, to swim that body of water, the lake, and also that lake would provide a higher level of volume of water below the dam, and it would take them longer to swim that particular body of water below that third dam. Also permit us to use a natural barrier, the Rio Grande River, more adequately, more efficiently, more effectively. Here's what Barack Obama responded to that question.
Well, I think it's very important for us to look at the infrastructure in the region. Levees are going to be absolutely critical, and I think we have to design those levees in a way that they can withstand a Category 4 or 5 storm. They aren't in the kind of shape that they need to be. I think it's also important for us to look at what kinds of natural barriers might be available to deal with some of the storms that could arise, because if we are oftentimes building man-made barriers, but we don't have the natural barriers that have been put in place, then we can be overwhelmed no matter how much we invest. So I think it's important for us to combine environmentally sound approaches with infrastructure improvements. That's something that has been lacking under this administration. It's something that I would make a top priority.
So you see your candidate responding in kind to my treatise, my question. He says he is in favor of natural barriers. He wants to build up the levees along the Rio Grande and the floodway system to handle a Category 4 or 5 storm. Seems to be talking our tune, living here on the border where hurricanes affect us.
Well, there's no question that if we don't do something about building up the levees in the Rio Grande Valley, that a hurricane that would make a direct hit and bring the degree of water that even dolly brought could create serious flooding in our community, and our levees are about 40% below where they should be today, at least in Cameron County, as best as I recall. And there's also no question that we don't have a water policy in the Rio Grande Valley, short of hoping for a small, well-paced hurricane that lands around the reservoirs and dumps a bunch of water and fills them up every 10 years. That's our water policy, and that we're running very short on water. So something needs to be done, whether it's the building of another dam or some other policy to increase the water supply for the people here in South Texas. That'll bring in more industry and so forth. So whatever is done, we're going to have a nominee and ultimately a president that's going to listen to us and come up with solutions to deal with those two critical problems facing Americans today in the Valley.
So both of you are happy with Barack Obama, your candidate, presumptively, for the Democratic Party nominee for President of the United States, happy with his position on immigration reform, my first question, and on the third dam and building up the levees along the Rio Grande River on the border with Mexico. We have requested several times interviews with Senator John McCain. He has not chosen to give us one. We'll keep you informed of where that materializes and whether we get one. If so, you'll see it right here on this program. I-69, the NAFTA highway. I did talk to a surrogate, Federico Pena, who is a former transportation secretary under President Bill Clinton, who is the Hispanic Outreach Chairman for Barack Obama. He committed to this reporter that he would try best he could to convince Barack Obama to push for this NAFTA highway's completion. But how important is the fast tracking of I-69 to get these just-in-time delivery parts to the big three, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, as quickly as they can from their Mexican manufacturing elements?
Critical. I mean, the Rio Grande Valley is the largest metropolitan community in the entire United States without access to an interstate highway. None. Zero. We've been having this I-69 project on the books since before I became county judge in 1995, and nothing has happened. That highway would be a critical element to NAFTA to ensure that there is an interstate highway connecting up the Rio Grande Valley, Mexico, to the industrial Midwestern states.
But does your candidate understand, Barack Obama, understand NAFTA? He had several and many ongoing comments about NAFTA need to be rewritten. And if that happens, that's going to not be received very well by Mexico City.
The primary process is difficult, and the labor interests are quite formidable in the Democratic Party.
But you're saying that's an excuse because
no, it's not an excuse. What I'm saying is that there's give and take. When somebody pushes and you don't agree with it, you push back. So our job as border leaders, is to communicate with our Democratic candidate, nominee, and other people who can influence him to see things as we see them.
So you intend to do that?
Oh yeah. Look, I've not been happy with the comments that have been made about NAFTA from several candidates in this campaign, but that doesn't mean that
Hillary's comments
the argument is over.
Very good either.
I mean, you continue to make your case. Every good lawyer knows that you keep arguing your case until you win it, and that's what we intend to do.
But NAFTA has problems. I mean, there hasn't been sufficient attention paid to the loss of jobs in the United States from some of the exportation of some of the goods that were being manufactured here to ensure that we're not exporting jobs as well. So, I think Hillary even talked about the importance of tinkering or modifying that law to lessen the impact, and I think Obama feels the same way. He's not going to get rid of it, but I think we all agree, those of us that represent the working people down here in South Texas, that you got to make sure that something is done to prevent these job losses that have been experienced.
But you both are of the opinion that it's important as people within the party to help convince your standard bearer that NAFTA is in fact saving jobs from going offshore. You truly believe that in your heart of hearts?
Well, it's good for the economy of the United States, and that we have to make sure that it doesn't cost American jobs as a result of that.
And the basis is if these plants creating parts in Mexico with the big three, if they weren't there, then all of those manufacturing parts would be going offshore.
That's right.
So at least keeping them in the hemisphere is a good thing for the economy. And you think Barack Obama can convince Hoffa and other union leaders that in fact is la verdad?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, well, look, we're in a global marketplace today, and when companies sit down at their boardrooms, they no longer think about the United States or the Northeast, the industrial Northeast. Those were the old days. We now have to think of global marketplaces. They'll move their markets all the way around, so we have to be competitive.
Hispanic families on the U.S.-Mexican border have the highest percentage of not having access to health care because they are uninsured. What can your party and your standard bearer do to try to help the people of the Rio Grande Valley, South Texas, all the way to El Paso and the Rio Grande, try to get access to quality health care?
Get Obama elected president of the United States, because he believes in a comprehensive health insurance program. That's going to be what Obama's folks have done in this convention, is that they've taken Hillary's comprehensive health insurance program and made it part of the party's platform. And so that whatever Hillary was advocating, which was a much broader health coverage program than Obama had, is now part of what the party stands for here in the United States. That plan will cover all Texans, all Americans, all South Texans, and ultimately ensure that all Americans who have been without health care get that health care insurance that they desperately need.
Our two guests, Aaron Pena and Gilberto Hinojosa, both going to the Democratic National Convention in Denver. And what goodies do you intend to bring back for South Texas while you're there?
From my perspective,
yes?
as a member of the and from my perspective as a member of the DNC, what I want to make sure is that we give a message to the Obama campaign and the presidential campaign that we can win Texas if we put some money and effort into it, and that we're building the party in this state, and that we're succeeding in growing the party in this state, and we're picking up seats in the legislature and in the Senate, and soon we'll be able to elect people in the statewide office. And Obama needs to recognize that, put some resources into the state so that this election cycle, that he not only has a chance of winning the statewide election for the presidential election, but picking up some seats for us in the legislature that we desperately need.
You agree, Aaron?
Oh, without a doubt. What I always love about these conventions is there's a lot of networking that's involved. I've been to the past two, and you meet people who otherwise may not ever visit your state, but they're important relationships that when you need something, you can call on somebody based on a casual meeting that you may have had at one of these conventions. Without a doubt, it's important that we argue our case for the state of Texas. Many people don't see Texas in play as we may, but that doesn't mean that we're not important. Texas really is, as you called it on this program, the homeland for much of the Hispanic community across the country. And I do think that we are intellectual leaders for that community. And I want to see this state recognized for not only its valuable people, but about its position in this country. And I really think great things can happen. And so, although these things are a lot of fun, I always enjoy going to them because they're great cultural experiences. And I think this is going to be better than probably the other two that I went to. But they're important because you could build relationships that'll bring something home to our community.
Well, ojalá, hopefully, we'll be joining you there in Denver. Gilberto Hinojosa, good having you on the program again. Aaron Pena, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. Till next time, adios.